Greetings, lords and ladies. I am Game Knight. Two of my greatest passions in life have always been gaming and medieval fantasy. Lucky for me, these two things go together so well. Sword and sorcery has been a huge part of gaming from its inception, and many of gaming's most popular titles are sword and sorcery games. Just look at Final Fantasy, Dragon Age, the Elder Scrolls games, Castlevania, Super Mario Brothers, for fuck's sake. Saving princesses from fire-breathing monsters is what sword and sorcery is all about. So I've decided to start a YouTube channel that combines my love for video games with my love for smashing stuff with a sword. So strap yourselves in and let's get medieval. Legend of Zelda, one of the biggest franchises in gaming, and with the still fairly recent release of Breath of the Wild, it's on everyone's minds. Unless you're not into gaming, in which case, what the hell are you doing here? Everyone and their mother has been cranking out Breath of the Wild videos recently, and it's not hard to see why. The game is fantastic, but that's not why we're here today. Oh no, we're here to discuss the ghosts of Zelda's past. I had been planning to start reviewing with a Zelda title about a year before Breath of the Wild was announced, but due to moving several times and in general life just smashing me in the face with a shovel, the project was delayed. By the time I was ready to get the ball rolling again, Breath of the Wild had just been released, I spent weeks playing it, and that leads us to now. A new project, a Legend of Zelda retrospective review. From square one, all the way to the newest gaming sensation. Now there's way too much to fit into a single video, so each game will be getting its own review. Now I won't be covering any of the Game Boy games or the CDI titles, thank friggin' Christ. Nor will I be talking about Hyrule Warriors, just the main console releases. That means the original Zelda, the topic of this video here, Zelda 2: The Adventures of Link, Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, and Breath of the Wild. If you want reviews on the other titles, message me, and if I gather enough interest, I'll do that as a separate review series. Also, since this is a huge undertaking, I'll most likely be releasing other material at the same time, so if I upload a review or let's play of some other game, don't worry, more Zelda will be coming. Introductions out of the way, let's dive into The Legend of Zelda. The first game, simply titled The Legend of Zelda, was released on August 22nd of 1987, created by Shigeru Miyamoto and Takeshi Tezuka. It was one of Nintendo's best sellers, selling more than 6.5 million copies, and took off as one of gaming's most influential game series. This is also the game that started the confusion about the name of the main character. Yes, I know his name is Link, and the princess's name is Zelda, but this game has absolutely zero— Oh! What the hell?! Wait. What do you mean there's an introduction if you wait on the start screen long enough? Many years ago, Prince Darkness Ganon stole one of the Triforce with power. Princess Zelda had one of the Triforce with wisdom. She divided it into 8 units to hide it from Ganon before she was captured. Go find the 8 units, Link, to save her. Oh, okay. So there is. I guess this information would have also been available in the booklet that came with the game, but considering the age of the copy I had, the book was nowhere to be found. And I never really thought to look for it. I mean, start game, grab sword, kill shit. Seems pretty self-explanatory to me. I never really had the patience to wait around on the start screen, so I just figured things out as I went, with varying degrees of success. As far as I knew, I was some random elf guy in a world full of monsters that happened to have a cubic fuckload of caves. This game's attitude on telling you what the hell you're supposed to be doing is— yeah, pretty much that. The first time I ever got a Triforce shard, I recall thinking to myself, alright, how do I kill things with it? After I figured out I couldn't actually use it for anything, I figure I probably had to collect them. One of the few times I was right. And I set about it. Not that I had any clue how many of the friggin' things there were. Just having them was good, and that to get them I had to go through larger caves and fight bosses. The worst thing was getting stuck. Hitting a point in the game that I just couldn't figure out or hack my way through with my sword. See, back then I couldn't just go to GameFAQs and look up the solution. It didn't exist. If I wanted help, I either had to purchase the strategy guide, which cost about as much as the game itself, so no thanks, or find someone at school who played the game and knew how to get past the part I was stuck on. Coincidentally, this is also how I found out exactly what the plot of the game was. I remember the worst part for me was this one part of the game where you've got to burn down this tree with a candle. Why would I think to do that? How the hell was I supposed to know it was this tree in particular? What, was I just supposed to burn down every tree in the game until I found it by trial and error? Is Nintendo encouraging kids to start forest fires? Because I think Smokey the Bear might be kinda pissed. You know, while it could be infuriating at times, the lack of direction leads to something I actually enjoy about this game, oddly enough. The fact that there is no set path. There are no set rules. You can go anywhere and do anything. This really added to the feeling that I was a legitimate adventurer heading off on an epic quest. I could explore the entirety of Hyrule without anything holding me back. I could enter any cave I found, even if it was full of monsters that were well beyond my current ability to handle. Anything I did discover was discovered through exploration, on my own time, on my own terms. You want to do the dungeons out of order? Go for it. You want to just run around Hyrule cutting down Octoroks for 18 straight hours? Good on ya! You want to ignore the cave and the old man at the beginning and play the game without a sword? You probably shouldn't do that. You will die. Is it just me, or is the old man confused about what the word alone means? He tells me it's dangerous to go alone, and then he hands me a sword. I'm still pretty fucking alone. I'm just alone and armed. Unless he's telling me to personify the sword, just like Tom Hanks with his volleyball in Castaway. I'm never alone as long as I have you, Stabby. I always got a laugh out of how absurdly placed some of the people you can talk to in this game are. There's one that you find in a cave that can only be found by bombing the right wall on a cliff. There are no other entrances or exits, just the solid rock wall that I had to access with high explosives, and yet here this person is, calmly waiting to sell me some shit. I have a few questions. How long have you been down here? How are you alive? The hell have you been eating? A personal favorite of mine is this random old woman. Now, if you get the letter from the old man on the other side of the map, you give it to her and she sells you potions. If you don't have the letter, she just stares at you with an odd grin on her face, never saying a word. It's kinda disconcerting. You gonna say anything? You okay? I'm just gonna go now. I guess, to be fair, we did just blow up the front door to her cave house with a bomb. You know, now that I really think about it, I don't think there is a single building in all of Hyrule. Is Hyrule just a land of cave-dwelling old men and women distributing swords, healing salve, and explosives? Not even Ganon has a building. You would think the big, evil, princess-capturing sorcerer would have some kind of death fortress to stash her in. But nope, just another cave.
Ah, game night.
Who the hell are you?
I'm the evil sorcerer who plagues these lands.
You plague suburban New York.
Well, someone has to, and they've been none the wiser. I've hidden my cave away in such a subtle place. Nothing like those dark, evil, wizarding towers.
Fair point. So what do you want?
I'm your rival. Every knight needs an evil sorcerer to fight. And every evil sorcerer has to have a knight who foils their evil schemes.
Bitchin'. Well, Stabby, looks like we've got some work to do.
Didn't mean to intrude. If you'll excuse me, I have other business to attend to.
That was weird. Anyway, the plot of the game is simple enough. Reading the intro, if you read the intro, basically explains everything you need to know. A sorcerer kidnaps a princess, and to defeat him you need the 8 pieces of the Holy Triangle. That's all there is to it. Absolute simplicity. Gameplay is pretty simple as well. You have 2 buttons, A and B. One swings your sword, and the other one uses whichever collectible item Link happens to have equipped at the time. You equip items by pressing start to bring up the menu, move your cursor over the item, then hit start again with the item selected. There are tons of items in the game to collect that will generally make your life a hell of a lot easier. A lot of which are found in dungeons, though many can be found in shops around the overworld. One item in particular, the blue ring, is the most expensive item in the game, and can be found in a secret shop hidden under one of these statue enemies. It turns your tunic a light blue color and halves all damage you would take. It's a great item to have, if you have the patience to grind 250 rupees. And considering you only get rupees in increments of 1 or 5, and it's a real crapshoot whether or not an enemy will drop them, it can take a while. My favorite place to grind for rupees when in need of cash is Dungeon 3, the Manji... Okay, you can't tell me that's not a swastika. Then again, considering we're trying to defeat magical Pig Hitler, it's kind of fitting. Anyway, the first 2 rooms of Dungeon 3 are filled with these blob enemies called Zol. If you hit them with the wooden sword, they split into 2 and become incredibly annoying. However, if you have the white sword upgrade, they die in 1 hit and usually drop health or rupees. So if you were looking for a quick, easy way to make some extra cash, here you go. Quick is the operative word here, by the way. You still spend a good amount of time here. But it's quicker than if you were to wander the overworld for ages, especially considering the enemies respawn if you exit and re-enter the dungeon. With a ton of rupees in hand, you can buy some pretty good items, like the potions sold by the aforementioned creepy old woman. For the low price of 68 rupees, you can get the red potion, which gives you 2 uses. 40 rupees gets you the blue potion, which only works once. You can also buy the magical shield. It's not magical at all, it's just much bigger than the original and can block more stuff. By that logic, my sword is a magical knife. You can also buy arrows, a candle, bombs, and meat. Other items include the boomerang, / magical boomerang. They do the same thing, but the magical one flies further. The bow, which is unusable until you purchase arrows from a shop, and then each arrow you fire costs a rupee. Why, though? I've already purchased the arrows from the shop. They cost me 80 freaking rupees. Why does it need a rupee every shot I take? And how? Is Link just tying rupees to the tips of his arrows? Because I have to imagine having a giant colorful stone strapped to the end of a projectile has to absolutely fuck its aerodynamics. It doesn't matter too much, because later you get the magical rod, which fires a magical projectile at will and costs nothing to use. It also gets the magical book upgrade, which makes its projectiles set fire to anything they hit, kind of rendering the candles useless. Oddly enough, you get the fire-shooting death stick right after you get the upgrade for the candle, so the upgrade was pointless. This happens more than once, too. You get the boomerang in Dungeon 1, and then in Dungeon 2, you get the magical boomerang upgrade. What was the point of the first boomerang, then? Why not just make it 1 item? You can also get the raft, which allows you to sail from a dock to a nearby location, necessary if you want to reach Dungeon 4. A ladder, which lets you bridge small gaps, like a bridge. Why isn't this item a bridge? The flute, which makes the boss, Dig Dogger, killable, as revealed to you by an old man in the same dungeon. And it opens a way to another dungeon, hidden under a pool of water. Another one of those who would think to do that situations. Why would anyone notice a pool of water and go, you know what? Let me play the fucking flute! You know what? This is so inspiring, I might burst into song! What, are we not doing that? This isn't that kind of show? Yeah, okay. There's the power bracelet, hidden under a statue enemy, which lets you push boulders and opens up a shortcut that lets you take a tunnel to pretty much any corner of Hyrule. Like any Zelda game, there are heart containers to increase your maximum health, and each dungeon has a map and compass to help you navigate. Finally, as far as items go, there's the sword and sword upgrades. You get the first sword, the wooden sword, right on the first screen. You can get the white sword upgrade and then the magical sword upgrade. Each one ups the amount of damage you can do, and once you start encountering enemies like Darknuts, you're going to want to do more damage. Incidentally, any sword allows you to fire the sword laser when you have full health. Even the wooden one. I'm not sure how that works. I mean, it makes sense with the magic sword because, you know, it's magic. But the wooden one? How does that work? Unless Link just has a bag of swords and is running around hucking them at his enemies.
Take that, Kerr! There's plenty more where that came from!
Now, for most Legend of Zelda games, I would have to talk about the NPCs, because in later installments, strange and interesting NPCs become a very memorable part of the experience. Unfortunately, that's not the case with this game. I mean, it's perfectly understandable, considering the limited space on old NES cartridges and the pixelated graphics they had to work with. It's kind of hard to make people look unique when you work with a space of maybe 8 pixels to make their faces. Most of the NPCs are either the old man, the old woman, shopkeeper guy, or one of the monsters who just gives you money whenever you find him. The dialogue basically sounds like something Inspirabot would come up with. Even the enemy sprites get reused a ton. Tougher enemies in the game are often just a recolored version of the original enemy with more health. And in later dungeons, some of the earlier bosses are used as a common enemy. In Dungeon 7, the final dungeon boss is just the same boss from the first dungeon. They didn't even recolor him, or change anything about him. With the magic sword and a higher HP total, he's a complete chump. Though to be fair, he was pretty easy the first time around too, especially if you had full health and access to the sword laser! Pew pew! Dodongo, the game's second boss, becomes such a common enemy that you run into him in multiple dungeons. And there's usually 3 of him. So, once you've gathered all the pieces of the Triforce, it's time to storm Ganon's lair! And in keeping with the common theme of this game, it's located in a bombable rock in the middle of buttfuck nowhere. His lair is also by far the largest dungeon in the game, and is naturally full of the hardest enemies. It's worth noting here that when you die in a dungeon, you get kicked back to room 1! So... yeah. After a while, you'll start having PTSD episodes every time you're low on health, because you'll realize it means you have to go and do the entire dungeon again! But finally, and mercifully, you reach Ganon, who's a real jerk. He's completely invisible until you hit him, and good luck with that, because he teleports. Not to mention that his room is set up in a way that he can teleport to areas you can't possibly reach with your sword. And you have to dodge fireballs the entire time. Oh, and remember, if you die here, it's back to room 1! Once you've blindly fumbled into him 4 times, he becomes visible, turns red, and drops to the ground. At this point, you shoot him with a silver arrow found somewhere within his dungeon. He explodes and drops the other holy triangle, the Triforce of Power. And you can go rescue the princess. And that's pretty much it. That's the game. We did it. This game is pretty tough and unforgiving. Not uncommon for old NES titles, and it's a real pain in the ass trying to decipher where you're supposed to go and what you're supposed to be doing. But once you figure it out and uncover the dungeons and the secrets, it leaves you with a great sense of accomplishment. Exploring the land of Hyrule is immensely satisfying because you're not railroaded into going in one particular direction or another. You feel like a legitimate explorer. Despite this game's age, nearly 30 years old at the time of recording, it's still a very enjoyable experience. so I would certainly recommend it if you haven't played it. And if you have played it, dust off your copy and give it another playthrough. Come to think of it, isn't it strange that there were only 2 holy triangles? Shouldn't there be 3? It'd make for much better synergy. Oh well, if you'll excuse me, I'm about to go blow up every rock and burn down every tree in a 10-mile radius in search of treasure. I've been Game Knight, and until we meet again, safe journeys.
Link, here come to town, come to save the Princess Zelda. Got it poked away, now the children don't play, but they will when Link saves the day. Hallelujah! Now Link, fill up your hearts so you can shoot.
Okay, Game Night, great episode. Now do the whole thing again.
What?